Yes, we have, definitely. Order. Order. Steve Race to move the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to move that this House has considered the future of rail services in Devon. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm delighted to have secured my first Westminster Hall debate. It's an honour to speak under your chairmanship, and I welcome the Minister to his place too. I'll start out by setting out why rail services in Devon are of the utmost importance to my constituency of Exeter and to our wider regional economy. Exeter is one of the fastest growing cities in the UK. Indeed, in the 10 years from 2012 to 2022, it's the fourth fastest. Exeter has experienced 11% growth in population from around 117,800 in 2011 to 130,800 in 2021. This is higher than the overall increase for England at 6.6%. We have an estimated population of 130,800 and a travel to work area of over 499,800 residents, with around 35,000 people commuting into Exeter on a daily basis for work and leisure. This wider hinterland is an integral part of the success of our economy. Exeter generates almost 6 billion in GVA, meaning we are the biggest economy west of Bristol and are in the top 10 cities for GVA growth in the UK. Exeter has generated 8% growth in new businesses, with 5,147 registered for business rates, a 3% growth in jobs. Exeter was also ranked 6th in the PwC Good Growth for Cities 2024 index. At the heart of our dynamic economy lies the University of Exeter, which is world-leading in life sciences, material sciences, climate sciences, marine sciences and engineering. Exeter FE College is the best in the country and attracts students from across the region due to its exceptional mix of academic and apprenticeship courses. The Met Office is world renowned for its climate science, its space weather work, and it's vital for many businesses for its work in oceanographic mapping. In addition, according to the Scale Up Institute, Exeter is a growing startup and scale-up ecosystem in climate tech, health and manufacturing. In short, Mr. Chairman, Exeter's economy is thriving and in sectors that are so important for the future of the UK economy. We do, though, face our challenges that will hold back our economy and our ability to deliver on these national priorities if we don't address them. One of these major challenges is the regularity and resilience of our public transport system. I have much to say about our bus network, Mr. Chairman, but today I shall limit my contribution to our rail services. In many ways, our rail service is a success. The number of rail journeys in our region is now at similar levels to pre-COVID, in contrast to other regions. So between April 2023 to March 2024, there were 50.9 million journeys to, from or within the South West region. Of this total, 25.4 million were made within the South West in the latest year. The rest were to London or elsewhere in the country. Devon itself counted 10.3 million journeys across 42 stations between April 2023 and March 2024. People in Devon have got back on the railways and in great numbers, showing both the enthusiasm and the need for rail services in our county that are reliable, available and affordable. And we know that rail is vital for sustainable economic growth too, growth that everyone can participate in, that delivers new, well-paid jobs and is generated in an environmentally sustainable way. Yeah, of course I can.
Chairman, can I commend the honourable gentleman for bringing this forward? And he's absolutely right to highlight the issue. But at this time of the year, Christmas, it's also a massive issue when it comes to rail service or bus service as well. The alternative is extortionate prices for taxis, and that just isn't sustainable for the ordinary man and woman in the street. Does the honourable member agree that there is more that government could do alongside rail and bus companies to ensure public transport services are improved for those who perhaps depend on it late at night for employment or indeed for their leisure activities as well?
I thank him for his intervention, and I thank him for his intervention. I absolutely agree that for many people in the lowest paid jobs or who work night shifts, the lack of availability of transport, both over the Christmas holidays but also during the regular times as well, is a real challenge to those people. Research commissioned by the Rail Delivery Group shows also that the rail industry generated 1.1 billion in economic, environmental and social benefits to the South West over the previous year, with rail customers contributing 2.7 billion through spending in local communities. And if we secured 40% rail growth by 2035 by delivering improvements to our network, that could bring in an additional 700 million in benefits to the South West. Greenhouse gas emissions locally would decrease by 1,200 tonnes. Congestion, which blights my city, would reduce reduced by 8 million hours and an additional 72 road traffic accidents would be prevented. At the moment, according to projections by the Railway Industry Association, rail travel is expected to grow by an average of 1.6% annually over the next 3 decades. That would equate to a 20% increase in rail usage by 2035, potentially raising the industry's contribution to about 1.55 billion. So 40% might seem like a stretch of an increase, but actually it's not beyond our capabilities if we get it right in Devon. Now, how could we deliver this, I hear this chamber ask. There are, as members present here from Devon know, a significant number of projects at various stages of readiness that could be initiated in order to achieve this 40% goal. First of all, the Dawlish seawall works. Alongside considering expansion, we must consider the resilience of our current rail network, keeping the gains we've already made. When the devastating storm of 2014 hit, the seawall at Dawlish collapsed, and alongside the cliff wall collapses, it meant that the only rail line west of Exeter, Brunel's magnificent main line into Devon and Cornwall, was severed, cutting off the majority of our peninsula from the rest of the rail network. The South West Rail Resilience Programme was enacted across 5 phases to repair and enhance the seawall, repair the cliff walls and enhance the line. Phase 5, which runs from Parsons Tunnel to Teignmouth and is focused on stabilising the cliff face so that it again doesn't fall on that line, it's a vital part of the project that is yet to be signed off. Mr Chairman, we are well aware in the South West that ever more numerous and ever more devastating storms are sweeping across our peninsula every year now, so resilience must be prioritised in order to protect the rail system. However, second, improving our rail resilience in Devon and across the South West means reducing total reliance on the Brunel line. We do have an alternative that we can build upon, the partial restoration of the Exeter to Plymouth line north of Dartmoor via Okehampton and Tavistock, for example. The reopening of the Exeter to Okehampton line has been an enormous success, opening up and connecting communities along the way. The previously mothballed rail line, which runs between Okehampton and Exeter, was restored in just 9 months and delivered in at £10 million under its £50 million budget. It opened in November 2021, and in the 3 years since it's reopened, there have been 775,000 journeys made on that line, far exceeding expectations ahead of it reopening. October 2024 saw 40,000 journeys to and from Okehampton on that line. It's a new monthly record. The appetite for rail journeys is clearly present in Devon. Yes, of course.
I absolutely welcome his comments about the success of the Exeter to Okehampton line, and the figures, I think, speak for themselves. So does he agree with me that the success of that Okehampton to Exeter line highlights why the small 1% request to keep the Tavistock to Plymouth line going in terms of its business case is a really small ask in comparison to what the Rebuilding Railways project was nationally, and that our little bit of that previous scheme would be very welcome in our region and particularly in Devon?
Yeah. I thank you for your intervention. I agree that what we need across Devon is to look at all of these shovel-ready projects from business case onwards to work out what will deliver the most economic value for our region to support in the missions to get economic growth going. Connecting Okehampton to Tavistock and Tavistock to Plymouth, making sure that continues, will create an alternative through route that will increase resilience in Devon and better connect both Exeter and Plymouth economies deeper into Devon, delivering much needed growth and opportunity across our county. Third, Mr Chairman, the Salisbury to Exeter section of the South Western line is currently largely single track. In fact, 75% of the track is single track. This has a huge impact on the available capacity of the line and, of course, on punctuality. Only around 54 to 66% of the trains run on time currently, and the regularity can really only stand at about 1 train per hour due to constraints on the track. Investing in passing loops through and around Tisbury, Wimpole, Honiton, west of Fennerton, and investment into better signalling that hasn't been updated in 40 years will enable more journeys and better punctuality on a line that is vital for completing the Devon Metro project, which is the integration and enhancement of rail services in the Exeter travel to work area that will aid Exeter's vital strategic position as the gateway to the South West Peninsula. It will bring communities across Devon together in one transport network that can deliver trains at least every half an hour and up to every 15 minutes, something that people in London may well raise their eyebrows at. Fourth, Mr Chairman, I want to mention the Northern Devon Railway Development Alliance, whom I met recently. They impressed upon me the importance of their vision for a complete modernisation of the Exeter to Barnstaple line, allowing potential improvement outcomes, including... Yes, of course.
Right. Honourable. Mr Chairman, thank you very much. I thank my honourable friend for giving way and for bringing the debate here on rail today in Devon. Trains on the Tarka line from Barnstable to Exeter are currently at overcapacity, partly because of one-way pressure of journeys, and that is large numbers of college students travel down to Exeter in the morning and back in the evening. Those trains need an extra carriage, but platforms on the route are too short to accommodate it. Would my honourable friend agree with me that something so basic as lengthening a platform is likely to leave passengers in Devon feeling hard done by in light of significant rail investment elsewhere in the country?
I thank you for your investment. I certainly think that the point around significant rail investment elsewhere in the country, which I'll come on to, has a real impact on how we see and how we should be fighting for a better railway system in Devon. Of course.
Caroline Bowden. I'm not Caroline Bowden, no. I'm Rachel Gilmore. Going back to the point that the honourable member's just made, as I'm sure all of us here are aware and very concerned about, the recent report from Peninsula Rail Network, which emphasises the problems that we are all going to experience in Devon because of the impact of the HS2 developments in Birmingham, which is going to close Paddington for up to 10 years. Will the honourable member be able to give us any reassurances that the government might think about doing one or two, or either, things like decreasing rail fares to encourage people to use the trains to come into Devon, even though it's going to take an extra 20 minutes on the rail time? And would they further think about giving some proper money to local government to invest in the rail infrastructure and our roads infrastructure while we have this effective closure of the network from Paddington to Cornwall?
Thank you very much, Mr Chairman, and thank you to the honourable member for her intervention. Members around the room will have joined me and others in a meeting with the Rail Minister and the Lord Hendy recently to discuss the impact of the works at Old Oak Common associated with HS2. I don't go into that too much in this speech because it's a very big topic, but I absolutely agree. Whilst I am very much in favour of HS2, and I think what's happened to that project over the years has been pretty disgraceful, it should be going ahead. What we need to see in the southwest is effective management of that project to make sure that the disruption that we have is minimised, but also we absolutely need to see some investment in our local railway lines to make sure that we see the benefit of public transport as well as across the country. Speaking of the Exeter to Barnstable line, allowing the potential improvement outcomes that could be brought forward as a part of this project would be significantly improved punctuality and reliability for both Barnstable and Oakhampton train services, with reduced knock-on delay to other parts of the national network. It would deliver materially faster typical journey times, with a fastest journey between Barnstable and Exeter St David's of no more than 55 minutes, with potential further material journey line savings. And it would also mean that train service frequency could be doubled from hourly to 2 trains per hour.
In the House, we are expecting 3 votes. 15 minutes allowed for the first one, 10 minutes for subsequent votes. There may be 2, there may be 3, so if people can get back as quickly as possible. If the mover of the motion and the Minister are in their place, we will commence the debate. So that's an encouragement for others to make it toot sweet back from the division on the third or second one. Thank you. Order, order. Order, order. We'll resume the sitting after the divisions. Steve Race to move the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Do I beg to move again at this point? No. I beg to move that this House has considered the future of rail services in Devon. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And it's a pleasure to continue serving under your chairmanship in this debate. I was talking about the Exeter to Barnstaple line, and the third reason why that would be of benefit to Exeter and to Devon is it would double the hourly service to 2 trains per hour between Barnstaple and Exeter and 3 trains per hour for Crediton. This would deliver huge economic and growth benefits for North Devon as well, connecting the towns to Exeter so that commuters, small businesses and tourists have better access to opportunities across Devon. And finally, Mr. Chairman, I want to raise accessibility. 2 of my stations in Exeter, St Thomas and Poleslow Bridge, have no accessibility arrangements. You can only use these stations by lugging yourself up significant flights of steps, which is an impossible task for the elderly or infirm, the disabled, mothers and fathers with young children and buggies, for example. A further station in my constituency, St James Park, has accessibility at only one side. So if you're in a wheelchair, you can get off the train, but you can't get back onto it to go from whence you came, because it steps on one side. This is clearly unacceptable, and so if the Minister could comment on the outstanding Access for All Fund, I would welcome his comments. Now, Mr. Chairman, I accept the difficulties that this government has come into when it comes to rail infrastructure investment in this country upon the general election. I know that a lot of the funds were merely PR press releases and didn't really have any funding attached to them. And I absolutely welcome... Of course.
Thank you, Chair. I thank my honourable friend, I'll call him that, my neighbour from Exeter, for raising this important debate. I think something that I really want to focus on is taking the politics out of all of this. Old Oak Common, I know this is an issue that you're not raising in this debate, will cause significant disruption both to our county of Devon and to our wider region. And it's imperative that we all work together now to make sure that we offset against those issues as quickly as possible. You've raised, the honourable members raised the points around storms that we have every year. This is a cycle that we just have, and we get cut off every year. And I really fear, as I'm sure the honourable member for Exeter does as well, that the issues around HS2 and Old Oak Common will further compound these issues. So does he agree that we need to work together to make sure that we get the best deal for both Devon and the wider South West?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for the intervention from my honourable neighbour. Thank you. I absolutely agree that we have a good working relationship across Devon on strategic issues, dentistry, railways, pharmacy, and I hope that continues. I think, though, we do live in the world in which we live, and so we have to be pragmatic about what we can achieve. And so I think acknowledging where we're starting from is important. And we are also changing the way that the government is also changing the way that the railways operate. And I welcome this real focus, not just on the bus system, but on making our railways the pride of Britain again. Mr. Chairman, Devon and the wider South West has huge economic potential. We have the skills and the institutions to help this government to succeed across all of its missions. And yet we receive the second lowest spending on transport per capita of any region or nation. And that stands at £429 per head in the South West. Only the East Midlands is lower at £368 per head. London is £1,313 per head, more than 3 times as much as the South West. Ensuring we have a resilient and growing rail network is good for Exeter, good for Devon and good for the country. I would welcome the opportunity to work with the Minister and alongside my colleagues from across Devon and the South West to identify funding to progress some, if not all, of these projects so that we can also play our part in the economic growth and success of this country. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
The question is that this House has considered the future of rail services in Devon. Steve Darling.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and it is a privilege to serve under your chairmanship. I'd like to congratulate the member for Exeter for securing this debate. It is an extremely important issue for the people of Devon and the southwest of England. Whilst there have been ongoing issues with our rail services for many years across the southwest, mostly due to lack of investment in public services from the previous Conservative government, there is this new threat and challenge that we have from the works that are being undertaken that members have extremely ably pointed out so far at Old Oak Common with the delays that we've seen here. And for many, many years in my service of the people of Torbay as a local authority member, I have been somewhat sceptical of HS2 and the amount of, the estimated £65 billion that it will cost when we in the Southwest have real challenges about resilience for our network, particularly at the pinch point of Dawlish, and when trains, when you get to Cornwall and over the Tamar, can only go at 65 miles an hour. So our network is really challenged. Going back to Old Oak Common, the fact that the section of HS2 will cost £6.5 billion between Old Oak Common and Euston is really quite astounding. The mitigation that I understand may well be on the table of £30 million around the impact of Old Oak Common on the Southwest, it shows that it is perhaps a drop in the ocean compared to the overall costs of the project as a whole of HS2. I would reflect as well that when one looks at the Southwest Resilience Project, it's cost the national taxpayer in the region of £150 million. The final part of this scheme is the Dawlish Rail Resilience Programme that will probably cost the same and again. But when you look at it in the context of how much HS2 has cost, this is small change compared to that big project, and it calls into question the levels of mitigation. So to me, sorting Dawlish and investing to save in the longer term is what I'm keen for my constituents in Torbay to see happening, and for the greater part of Devon, Cornwall as well. I'd also highlight to people that one of the essentials of going on a train is a toilet. Now, our modern equivalent of this is probably having good access to the internet. You wouldn't, get on a train without a toilet, and yet we have poor internet connection across Devon and the GWR network. I'm well aware that we have that there is an oven-ready scheme, good to go, that was raised with the Minister a few weeks ago, and he acknowledged that as well. So that could also be a really helpful way of mitigating the challenges that we face with these delays with Old Oak Common, of actually making sure that people can be productive. Because my understanding from the research I've done is that we are looking at people in the UK having half the levels of internet access compared to our continental cousins. I just wanted, as the member of Torbay, to be a little bit parochial at this point and highlight the final piece of the Devon Metro system, which is a very fine Devon County Council plan. And the final piece actually lies within my constituency of Torbay, which is Edginswell Railway Station. This is part of the Town Deal regeneration programme that is extremely important, and it's important for a couple of reasons. It supports a business park and regeneration in one of the most deprived parts of the Southwest Peninsula, which is sadly my constituency, but also it helps our NHS. We need to see investment in our health services, particularly Torbay Hospital, and part of investing in that service is ensuring that there is sufficient accommodation for those who service our NHS, their employees. And part of that is regenerating Paynton Town Centre, those people being able to stay in Paynton, then jump on a train and be dropped off at Edginswell, almost on the doorstep of a renewed Torbay Hospital. So this is joined up government, and I hope the Minister will reflect on Edginswell, because I understand that the funding may well have been withdrawn in the last few days effectively, but to me the crucial part is supporting Dawlish and the Dawlish Rail Resistance Programme 5, because getting that supports the rest of the peninsula, the southwest. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
It's a privilege to serve under your Mr Pritchard, and I'm delighted to be able to follow on from my colleagues from across Devon, and know that some others will be speaking shortly. For those of you who listened to my maiden speech, you will notice that railway and transport in the South West was something that I've committed to fighting for. So when I saw the debate today, I thought, well, I've got to come along and make sure I play my part in that. Sadly, there won't be mentions towards Kylie Minogue's locomotion today, but if you want to go back and read my maiden speech, you're very, very welcome to. I think what's clear in all things to do with the railway in the South West, and particularly in Devon, is that we're just looking for parity with the rest of the country. And I think that's been alluded to, particularly with HS2. I know that has cross-party support historically, but right from the beginning, I thought, well, hang on a minute, what about the South West? You know, a few minutes shorter journey times from an already easily transportable system from London to the Midlands versus what we get in the South West. I've never completely been there with the argument, but we are where we are today. I think it's important to acknowledge what the previous government did do, though, in terms of taking responsibility for the South West. And I think we mustn't forget that £165 million was invested in the South West Rail Resilience Programme that got us almost to where we are today. And we do just need that final piece of the jigsaw to ensure that that line that takes us down into the South West is secure. So I think credit where credit is due. I think it's also really important that we remember that we're not just a tourist attraction. And again, that was something I talked about in my maiden speech. You know, we live there. There's an enormous opportunity for even further growth. We're an incredibly vibrant economy. The blue and green economy is growing, and we're keen to do that. But without an adequate rail service into the South West, that's massively, massively hindered. Like Exeter, my constituency of South West Devon has a joint local plan that is already being delivered, but infrastructure is key to that, and I'm going to touch very briefly on that towards the end of my speech. But I think the main question I have at the end to be summarised, I suppose, when the Minister speaks later, is what difference public ownership of the railway will make for the South West. I think that's the kind of big question that overarches everything else. I want to just touch briefly on Old Oak Common, Tavistock Railway and Ivy Bridge in my constituency. And the reason why I do want to touch on Old Oak Common is because the really helpful letter that came from the Railway Minister recently talks specifically about a pot of £30 million for capital investments to mitigate the impact of disruption. I think that beggars the question of what's that going to be spent on. So it would be really interesting to hear some detail on what that is. I think all of us in the room can make some pitches on what we think that should include, but I think Wi-Fi has already been touched on. I'm going to touch on the Tavistock to Exeter, Plymouth to Tavistock line, forgive me. I think that's a nice project that would cost just a fraction of that £30 million. And likewise, we've got some challenges with platform lengths, which stop certain trains from stopping within my constituency. So I would really welcome some detail on what that may be spent on. Because at the moment, the benefits that are also contained in this letter, where it says that we will be able to get connections to the North and the Midlands, in my view, don't pass the so what test, because we can already get to the Midlands and the North from the South West directly without having to go in basically a triangle across to London. So although that is, clearly going to help some connectivity, I don't think it stacks up when you're a constituent in Devon to know that you could go to London to get to Birmingham, or you just go straight from Plymouth to Birmingham or Exeter to Birmingham. I do acknowledge, though, that the easier access to Heathrow may be helpful, but again, is that of limited value. That leads me on to the Rebuilding Britain's Railway. And again, we've had a helpful answer from the Minister here that the department is reviewing individual restoring your railway projects, including the Tavistock to Plymouth line. The ask now, they've scaled back. They're just asking for 1%, the seed money to finalise the business plan so that we can actually get to a point where we're shovel ready for 2028. The Honourable Member for Exeter has highlighted already the appetite that we can see visibly from that Oakhampton line. I also think it's worth saying this makes us more resilient, because we can then ultimately create a circle that is going to go from Exeter all the way around to Plymouth and back to Exeter that doesn't require Dawlish. And I think in the next 10, 15 years, that is part of that rail resilience. So they're just looking for 1%. It's less than £1.5 million, could be part of that £30 million capital. I don't know whether it counts as capital or revenue, but ultimately the question around that is, when will that decision be expected? So when are you going to feed back on whether that line is one of the ones that will be considered. And then just finally, well, actually, just on that, I want to just say it links up again to the joint local plan. We also have a metro rail plan for Plymouth that includes a station in my constituency of Plympton, which would be part of that circle that then goes round to Ivybridge and up. Very briefly, Mr. Chair, I just want to mention Ivybridge in my constituency. At the moment, there are only 16 Great Western trains that stop there a day. There are 29 cross-country services that go through the station but don't stop. And at the moment, cross-country are refusing to do that. So again, in light of the nationalisation plans, I'd be very interested to know what measures you might be able to take as the department to levy some pressure on cross-country to ensure that that would become 45 weekday services that my constituents would be able to use to then access the wider area. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
So 5 minutes for the Liberal Democrats, 5 minutes for official opposition and 10 minutes for the Minister. Richard Ford.
Thank you, Mr. Pritchard, and it's an honour to serve under your chairship, and I congratulate the Honourable Member for Exeter for putting in for this debate and securing it. I want to just reflect on some of the things that have been said by other Honourable Members this afternoon. It's plain that Exeter is a real hub for Devon, and the Honourable Member for Exeter pointed out that there are 500,000 residents who are in the travel to work area. That includes a large number of people who live in the Honiton and Sidmouth area that I represent. And I know that they are really eager to see the full development of this so-called Metro Rail project. Now, Metro Rail makes it sound like it might be something like the Elizabeth line here in London. You know, we're not going to kid ourselves. It is about trying to ease the journeys into Exeter for those many people who are left waiting at cold stations on winter's nights or early mornings, such as those in December. This is about trying to improve the reliability of services and the punctuality of services. And the frequency of services. And that's true for Axminster, Fennerton and Honiton in the patch that I represent on the South West Rail line. And it's also true for Columpton, which desperately needs the restoration of a railway station that was closed under the beaching cuts in the 1960s. I want to go over those 2 points in a little bit more detail. The Honourable Member for Exeter is exactly right that we should see the construction of a passing loop near Fennerton, Honiton and Wimpole. That passing loop would make all the difference to the reliability of services serving the Exeter to London Waterloo line. Often people find themselves stuck at stations along that route because of the single track, which doesn't allow for trains to pass each other. Anecdotally, I was talking to the guy who runs the Railway Kitchen. It's a railway station cafe at Axminster a few weeks ago, and he was telling me that business is booming. You might think that that's a really positive thing. It is for his cafe. It's not for the passengers who find their train delayed and hence use the hostelry that the cafe provides. I said I'd talk also about the other station, that is Columpton. Columpton is part of a pair of stations that are very fit for development. That is Columpton in Devon and Wellington in Somerset. This is really high on the list for Lord Hendy, the Railway Minister, and the reason for that is because of the brilliant benefit-cost ratio of the Wellington-Columpton programme. This benefit-cost ratio of 3.67 is the highest benefit-cost ratio in the country, and it's reckoned that one reason for that is because of the economic activity that it will afford, and specifically the proposed new town, Colm Garden Village, as it's called, at Columpton. With so much new housing proposed, it's absolutely desperately required that there's a railway station to go with it so that we don't simply see housing without infrastructure. Other honourable members have made some very good points. Honourable Member for Exmouth and Exeter East, and also the Honourable Member for South West Devon talked about Old Oak Common. We're going to have a separate debate on that next week, so I shan't enlarge on that now. But I do also want to commend the Honourable Member for Torbay for talking up the importance of the South West Rail Resilience Programme. This final step, this fifth phase in the creating resilience in the Exeter to Newton Abbot line. We saw an 8-week closure of that line in 2014, and essentially the message that sent to Cornwall and a chunk of Devon is you don't matter. That region of the country was completely isolated, and we just wouldn't allow that in other parts of the country, and we shouldn't allow it in the southwest also. There was in my final remark, there was an appeal earlier that we should put aside party politics, and on Old Oak Common, I agree. I cannot help, though, remember that the Right Honourable Member for Richmond came to my constituency and talked about funding for Cullumpton Station. We know that funding did not exist, and we do now need to see funding for that station. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. And Mr Pritchard, you remain an ornament of the bench. It's a pleasure to see you in your position. And I also congratulate the Honourable Member for Exeter for securing this debate. I've learnt a lot about the rail possibilities of Devon as I've listened to it. There have been a huge number of issues raised, both threats and opportunities for the area. Just a handful which I've written down: the Dawlish Seawall Works, the Exeter to Oakhampton success story of reopening a redundant line. We've touched on the Old Oak Common. I will talk about that a little bit later. There's accessibility challenges on stations, platform lengths. There's the issues about the cancellation of the Restoring Your Railway plan. But it was within the framework of the member's initial assessment, which is that rail is an enormous success in the area. And to touch why it's an enormous success, and it is overwhelmingly because of the benefits that privatisation brought. Because if you look at the heyday of the railways, which is generally considered to be the early 1950s, the direction of travel in terms of participation on the railways, i.e. people voting with their feet, was inexorably downwards. It's a straight line downwards until privatisation, when it has reversed. And that's because of the enormous investment which privatisation allowed to be brought into railways, and passenger numbers have now doubled as a result of it. So I do question what the government's position on renationalisation is going to do for passenger numbers, and who is it who's going to stand up for the passenger under this new system. But most of that is for another day. So of the handful of issues which have been raised, I'm just going to touch on two of them. The first one is Old Oak Common. There is deep concern in the region about the impact to the GWR services, diversion of services from the southwest, reduced track operations, closure of access to London Paddington, occasional redirection to London Euston, but when and is it predictable? Longer train journeys and a reduced quality of service. So my first question to the Minister is, I'm sure he recognises this, and the need for disruption is understood. The question is, will people have to pay the similar prices for a noticeably worse and disrupted service? And secondly, when will passengers have certainty in relation to the timetable? A timetable that is not just printed, but they can have a degree of confidence in, sufficient to book and rely on that service being delivered. And then the other issue with GWR, of course, is Sunday performance. That is reliant on voluntary overtime from unionised drivers and other train operators. And that is an extraordinary position to be in. And I recognise this is a long-standing issue, so I'm not having a particular go, but I do recognise this. How can you possibly have a mandated schedule with volunteers, reliant on people volunteering to staff it? So I look for the government's response on that. I mean, early signs are not particularly encouraging, Mr Pritchard. The no strings attached £9,000 pay rise to ASLEF train drivers with no Sunday working agreements, in fact, no productivity enhancing characteristics, is not a good start. And I fear that nationalisation of the service as a whole will only make it worse. And so my question is to the Minister, when the system is nationalised, when there's no incentive to go after extra customers, then who is it who's going to stand up for the customer experience? And when the Minister, the Noble Lord Hendy, says that he continues to press for resolution of the Sunday working issue, my question to the Minister is how? Because we all wish it, but what active steps is the government going to take? And then secondly, in the last 30 seconds, restoring your railway. The first thing the government did in July was to cancel it. It's an enormously popular project. We've seen how it was effective from Exeter to Oakhampton. The Tavistock to Plymouth service is just as important. And yet, in the letter from yesterday from Lord Hendy, he now says that the department is looking again. Is this a U-turn? If it needed time to stop and think, why did the government not do that when they took the precipitate decision to cancel this entire project back in July? And if the answer is, well, there was no money, that is not correct. There was the entire £150 million for that funding was coming from the cancellation of the second leg of HS2. If that has been gobbled up by something else, perhaps the Minister can tell us what's happened to the money.
Minister, forgive me, can I just remind PPSs that usually intervene either officially or unofficially, if you don't mind me saying so. Minister, thank you.
Thank you very much, and it's a pleasure to serve with you in the chair, Mr Pritchard. I want to congratulate my honourable friend, the member for Exeter, for securing this debate on the future of rail services in Devon. And I thank all honourable members for their contributions today, including, of course, not in his place at the second, the member for Strangford, his intervention, member for Torbay. Let me just say on the issue of internet for the member for Torbay, free Wi-Fi is available on GWR services. However, I'm aware that they are very certainly connectivity issues on parts of the network, and I've asked my officials to explore the feasibility of a range of technology options to improve passenger connectivity on the rail network. The department is also conducting research to measure the strength of mobile signals along the rail network to fully understand where interventions are needed and the potential impacts. Can I also thank the member for South West Devon. I am devastated by the lack of Kylie Minogue references in a contribution there, but I'll come on to reference some of the issues that Mr Pritchard, you missed a fantastic maiden speech in which there was many a reference to Kylie Minogue tunes, including the locomotive. And the member for Exmouth and Exeter East as well. Look, this government recognises the importance of rail services in Devon. As we've heard today, the transport network is key for providing the connectivity to support economic development, housing and employment growth, as well as tourism. Since the pandemic, the South West has seen a strong recovery in rail passenger numbers, especially in the leisure market. Passenger journeys in Devon are up by 9% compared with 2019, whilst nationally they remain about 6% lower. We know many services in Devon are often very busy, particularly on Fridays and weekends. We have now authorised and funded additional trains that are due to enter service on cross-country routes from May 2025, providing improved connectivity across Britain. Certainly will.
I welcome what you're saying. Just a point of interest, it would be worth perhaps looking at the numbers on a Thursday, because in line with most of the country, Thursday is the new Friday, and I am sure most of my colleagues in the room will testify to the challenge of getting a train out of London on a Thursday, because everybody wants to go back to Reading and then we get left. So with all due respect, it might be worth looking at the numbers on a Thursday just to help us with our case to push for more capacity in the South West. Thank you.
I'm convinced that the civil servants in the Department of Transport will be looking at numbers across the week, just to reassure you. But the reintroduction of daily passenger services on Oakhampton line has seen strong passenger demand since regular services were launched in 2021. These were enhanced to hourly services in 2022. This government is committed to building on that success, with work progressing on a new station to the east of Oakhampton Interchange. Due to open in 2026, this station will become a hub for trains and buses and improved walking and cycling links. Another new station, March Barton in Exeter, opened in July 2023 and has already seen a total of nearly 130,000 journeys since it opened. Whilst it's great to see more people in Devon using the rail network, This government wants to see further improvements, and we've been clear that rail services have been failing passengers. Cancellations are at a 10-year high, and punctuality is inconsistent across the network. We need to improve services for passengers and deliver better value for money for the taxpayer. We've taken immediate action, and ministers continue to meet with the managing directors of train companies and their Network Rail counterparts to address poor performance and demand action to raise standards. A resilient railway is crucial to the economy, not just in Devon and the South West, but right across the country. That is why £165 million has been invested to date in the South West Rail Resilience Programme at Dawlish, providing better journey reliability for rail travellers in the South West. Industry studies are also underway to build the case for additional passing loops between Exeter and Salisbury, at known locations where trains are delayed as they wait for trains passing in the opposite direction. I would encourage my honourable friend to work together with industry, funding providers and other route MPs in supporting the work on these passing loops. I'm aware that a number of honourable members have shown strong support for a number of potential rail projects referenced today. Ministers have been clear, however, that in the context of the financial situation the government inherited, it will not be possible to afford to deliver all proposed projects. The Secretary of State is conducting a thorough review of the previous government's transport plans to ensure that our transport infrastructure portfolio drives economic growth and delivers value for money for taxpayers. I'm also aware that the honourable friend has been campaigning for lifts at Exeter St Thomas and is it Polslow Bridge stations in his constituency. The government is carefully considering the best approach to the Access for All programme. I'm unable to comment on specific stations at this point, but we remain committed to improving the accessibility of the railway and recognise the social and economic benefits that that brings to communities. In the meantime, if any passenger cannot use an individual station, the train operator is obliged to offer alternative transport at no additional cost. Finally, I want to address the impact of Old Oak Common in services between Devon and London. This new station is a crucial enabler for the government's growth mission. However, I recognise the concerns that my honourable friend has about the impact of these works on rail services for his constituents, both during and post-construction. The next phase of the work takes place this Christmas and will see changes to the GWR services from the 27th to the 29th of December. Some intercity services will divert to London Euston and some will terminate at Reading or Ealing Broadway. Passenger communications are happening now to enable passengers to make choices about how and when they travel. I'm aware that the Rail Minister has met with many MPs, as you alluded to in your contributions today, from the South West, including my honourable friend, to discuss this matter. And I'd like to take this opportunity to confirm that this government will continue working with industry partners to ensure that disruption for passengers using Great Western Main Line are kept to a minimum, both during construction and once in operation. I want to thank the honourable member for Exeter again for bringing this debate on the future of rail services in Devon, and of course fully acknowledge and appreciate the importance of this to him and his constituency. The spokesman for the opposition raised GWR performance, including Sundays specifically. The government recognises the performance is not where it needs to be on Great Western Railway services. This is due to a range of issues, including infrastructure and fleet reliability, as well as train crew availability, which has resulted in higher levels of cancellations on Sundays in recent months. Officials and GWR are actively working to address this issue. A member raised the issue of cross-country. Cross-country, of course, provides vital intercity rail services linking Plymouth and Exeter with Birmingham, Yorkshire, North East England and Edinburgh, as well as offering popular through services between Torbay and Manchester. Since September, cross-country has seen passenger numbers return to pre-COVID levels. I acknowledge that cross-country services are often very busy, particularly on Fridays and weekends, and perhaps also on Thursdays. The size of the cross-country intercity fleet has been an issue for some time, and this has been exacerbated by the retirement of cross-country's fleet of 5 high-speed trains in September 2023, which operated on the Edinburgh to Plymouth route. The Government is determined to deliver improved train services for passengers, and to reduce crowding, the Department has authorised and funded 12 additional Voyager trains that are due to enter passenger service on cross-country routes in May 25. This will increase the Voyager fleet by over 20% and enable cross-country to provide thousands more seats per week across their network. The first 3 of these Cascada trains are already in service. The entire cross-country train fleet is also due to be refurbished over the next few years, offering new seats, additional luggage space and other improvements that will benefit passengers. I know, as the Liberal Democrat spokesman alluded to, there is going to be a separate Westminster Hall debate on Old Commons, so I won't say any more about that at this time. In terms of the agenda for all and accessibility, just to touch on some of the points raised by members there. Following the election, we of course are carefully considering the best approach to the Access for All programme. DfT ministers of course aren't able to comment on the next steps regarding Access for All projects at specific stations, including Exeter St Thomas Station. However, please be assured that we are committed to improving accessibility of the railway and recognise, as I said before, the social and economic benefits that this brings. And with that, I thank you once again, congratulate the member for his session today, and look forward to working with everybody to improve rail connections across the country. Thank you.
Steve Race to wind up.
Great, thank you very much for your chairmanship of this debate, Mr Pritchard. I want to thank the Minister for his responses. I also just want to restate my thanks to Lord Hendy for the engagement that we've had from him so far, but also for some of the improvements that he does appear to have delivered in the medium term that were communicated to us. Thank you for the continued engagement from the entire department. I think the key message to take away into the Department for Transport is that there is huge economic growth opportunity in Devon across the wider southwest, and the railways play a significant role in helping us to unleash that potential. So please continue to think about Devon as you make decisions on rail funding throughout the coming Parliament. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr Pritchard.
The question is that this House has considered the future of rail services in Devon. There's not many opinions say aye. Aye. The contrary, no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it. Order. The sitting stands adjourned. Have a good evening. Thank you.